Thank you, Jared and Gary. I tell you what, there might only be 2 games this weekend, but the news is coming thick and fast. We have got all of the latest in footy's biggest stories right here for you on the Midweek Tackle. My name's Lauren Wood. I'm joined by Scott Gullan and Josh Barnes from the Herald Sun. Magnificent to have both of you with us. Now, Scotty, you've reported a short time ago that we've had a withdrawal from the Melbourne coaching race. Tell us the latest.
Yeah, Hayden Skipworth, the Collingwood assistant coach. I believe this transpired over the weekend, and I think late Sunday, Melbourne were surprised to learn that he wanted to go out. So it's dropped the list to 5. The interview started on Monday morning, and Nathan Buckley was one of the first ones there. So now we have the Geelong pair, James Kelly, we've got Stephen King, Daniel Jean Siracusa and Brendan Lade and Nathan Buckley. But Skipworth was right up there because, as we remember last year, West Coast Andrew McWalter got appointed. He went very well in that process. He's highly regarded. He'd done time at Essendon and actually Craig McRae's right-hand man at Collingwood. So it shocked the Demons, but Hayden Skipworth has elected not to go along the process. Now, Barnesy, what do you think this means in terms of who's going to get this gig?
Yeah, Scotty, we all see Hayden Skipworth as a coach in waiting, don't we? So this seems to me like the kind of move you pull if you think you're not going to get the job and you don't want to be a runner-up. We know once you become a runner-up too many times, you start to get a bit of a stink about you. So he wants to get out of that. That's what it feels like to me. Is this just a Buckley boat race?
Well, I thought it was going to be like that, but then Bucks committing to the process is impressive. I think he had to, but he was the first one there, and the mail is he's preparing a team. Already, there's names being... So he's, as you would, you present to the board and go, if I'm your man, I'm going to bring X, Y and Z. And one of the names mentioned has been Marcus Wagner, who he worked with at Collingwood. But interestingly, he was at Melbourne till recently, Lauren, in the AFLW program, but left in June, I think it was.
He was. So he was the general manager of footy in the women's program when they won their premiership, of course, up at Springfield a few years ago now. And as you say, worked closely with Buckley. So, I mean, we're yet to gain an insight from the other contenders in this race as to what their teams will look like. But it certainly feels like, doesn't it, that Nathan Buckley is working very, very heavily behind the scenes to present what it might look like.
So Melbourne has their best and fairest tonight.
Right now.
Our understanding is by the end of the week, the candidates will know if they've cut the shortlist, which we understand to either 3 or 2 candidates will get another interview. Melbourne have said all along they want it done by preliminary final. I spoke to them today and they said the AFL will kill us if we do it in grand final. Imagine if it's Geelong, Collingwood. Oh, and by the way, come down to the MCG because we're announcing our new coach. So they're aware of that. And I think this will accelerate over the weekend. Second interviews and then bang, decision made. Well,
I don't think they're in the greatest of books, as we told you here on the Midweek Tackle at the time. After, of course, sacking Simon Goodwin on the day, the launch day of the AFL women's competition. So I don't think it would go down too well. But as you say, the next sort of 48 to 72 hours is going to be crucial for all of those candidates. So as you say, the Melbourne Best and Fairest is happening as we speak. I don't know, what's your sort of vibe, Barnes? Yeah, it is highly regarded season, as it were, when all of the assistant coaches are described as such.
We don't really talk about the lowly regarded assistants this time of the year, but they just have to keep to these deadlines. We know that. We know there are players waiting at Melbourne to see who's going to be the coach and what the coach wants to do with him. Judd McVie, for example, has people coming after him. He wants to see who's going to coach him, if he's going to stick around. We all know about Kristen Petrarca, Clayton Oliver. Their futures remain cloudy depending on if the coach wants them or not. So the sooner they can appoint, the better. And it's good to see, I guess, they're moving on with it.
Well, the Demons are closing in slowly on their man, Scotty. As you say, we are expecting an announcement in preliminary final week. But the name that is really being floated around a lot of these clubs at the moment, of course, is Ken Hinkley. Did he actually come close to being a part of this process?
No, well, Ken's phone hasn't stopped ringing since he left Port in that blaze of glory. I think a dozen clubs literally have rung him or his manager just how is he, what's he thinking? So the Melbourne was, are you interested in having a hat in the ring? And, of course, he said no. Other phone calls have been more about footy boss. This is where Tasmania becomes interesting. So Tasmania, as we knew a couple of months ago, it was all Nathan Buckley. He was the first name mentioned, and Brendan Gale, everyone was all in on Bucks to Tasmania. And now, obviously, everything's changed. Bucks is more Melbourne. So what happens at Tasmania? I think they've been on the phone to Ken, potentially more football boss areas. But I wouldn't rule out coach. I mean, he still has the fire in the belly, I believe. Would he go down there and coach the start-up program, get it going? He was at Gold Coast when it started back in the day. So he's been there and done that. His phone hasn't stopped ringing. and he's weighing it up. So I don't think he's going to do anything in a hurry, but we know Tasmania's timeline is middle of next year. They've just appointed, they've got the recruiting team and they've got a few other appointments that are slowly eking out. The footy boss and the coach are the next two big ones. So Kenny could be one of those.
It feels like it could suit him, as you say, Scotty. Josh, what's your sort of vibe on timing? Because, as you say, the fire still burns really strongly is the sense that we get from Ken. But this could almost be the ultimate scenario for him, couldn't it? Step out of the cauldron of senior coaching and really the fire. And that's not to denigrate what the next year and a half or so is going to look like for Tasmania. Like, this is still going to be really hard yakka going on down there on the Apple Isle. But it's almost the perfect gig, really, in his sense, is you get that little bit of time out of it before maybe jumping back in.
Definitely, and I think he has been and was, I suppose, a very good senior coach, but I think he would be an excellent football boss. He could really put an imprint on a football program, and Tasmania needs a big imprint. As you said, Scotty, he's not afraid to be part of a start-up, I guess, for want of a better term. He did that at the Gold Coast. I think he would be suited excellently to Tasmania. We know he has strong family ties in South Australia, but there are no jobs left there for him. He's not going to be working at the Crows, and there's nothing left at Port. So it's Tasmania. It seems to make a lot of sense to me. Yeah,
it does. All of the ducks are lining up firmly in a row. But speaking of footy bosses, our colleague Jay Clark led the reporting on Chris Davies moving to Carlton, of course, out of Port Adelaide. He worked so closely with Ken. The new Josh Carr era sees him move to the Blues. Who are Power actually looking at for that vacant football boss role?
One name I can tell you tonight is James Bartel, the Brownlow medalist, Geelong champion. He, I believe, has had discussions with Port. He's had discussions with a couple other clubs as well. He's been keen to get into this sort of role for a few years. And when you think about it, great player, obviously. Yep. GWS board member. He's done some work in recruiting. He's currently running the sports program at Caulfield Grammar. So that's not just the footy team. He's doing all the sports. So he's getting some ticks to his CV. And I believe Port and him have had a discussion. Whether that progresses or not, I think he would be keen. Again, moving to state, all that has to be weighed up. But, you know, if Matthew Pavlich can bob up suddenly as Sydney CEO out of nowhere, don't be shocked if Jimmy Bartel appears at Port Adelaide.
He certainly has the runs on the board. Yeah. He's done a lot of different jobs. He always wanted to stay out of coaching per se and be more that managerial sort of area. So it does seem to make sense to at least sound him out and see what he's got.
Now, that role is vacant, as is, of course, the chairman of the AFL, with news that Richard Goyder will step away. Now, our colleague Michael Warner has been really big on this story, particularly in the last few days with the back page on Monday about the apparent rift between Jeff Brown and Eddie Maguire. Now, Josh, Mick is reporting tonight that Jeff Brown is actually back into the race. Yeah. So that there was, I guess, a pretty wild 4 days that led up to him removing himself on Friday night. That Mick's understanding, and he's reporting tonight, that it all essentially came to a head at the game on Friday night, where Peter Gordon and Craig Drummond, who it is worth noting was invited by Geelong, were dining at the MCG, an event that Jeff was not invited to. That was when he decided to remove himself from that race. Now, we know that the clubs have essentially revolted against the process. They have banded together against this nominations committee. Jeff, I think with this potential shift in process, that a little bit of power may be coming back to the clubs as part of this nominations process is well and truly back in the mix for the role. But I think the feeling among the clubs, it seems at the moment, is that a frustration in the moving of the goalposts from Richard Goyder essentially mid-game on this. It's quite incredible to think it's come to this, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's superb reporting, as always, from Mick on Code Sports, wherever you can read that. It did seem to come down to that dinner that he was spotted. Peter Gordon was spotted in the wrong spot, eating in the wrong steak, perhaps. Clubs didn't like it, and it really feels like Richard Goyder's pushed too many barrels, and the clubs are sick of sort of his movements and games around his succession. It's taken far too long to properly anoint a successor, and now, because it's got this far, anything he decides to do, the clubs are not interested in. So it's getting out of hand for Richard, and the clubs are taking back some of that power. It
was put to me in racing parlance, Lauren, which funnily I know a bit about. Gordon was $1.50 on Friday night as he sat down to have that steak. By today, he's drifted like the wind, and Jeff Brown's back to $1.50 because of what we just spoke about. The clubs have gained momentum. The question I want to ask you two is, why does the chairman have to anoint his successor if he hasn't done the groundwork already? Like, shouldn't it be the club / who else is on the commission to go, thanks for your time, Richard. You sit over there. We'll go and talk to all these people because you're not really relevant anymore.
Well, that's the great irony in this, in that he's setting a process to effectively choose the guy who will be the boss when he's not even there, as you say. But the understanding from Mick's story is that the charter of the game actually says that the clubs are the ones that put forward the commissioners, and then it is up to the commissioners to elect the chairman. So I think you will see the clubs wrench back a little bit of that power to say, hey, no. This is actually written right here in black and white, that we actually get the say on who is put up, rather than Richard Goyder and his crew sort of, getting their guys in for the first place to then be selected from.
Like the normal footy fan, they don't lose a lot of sleep over this stuff, but they do know that Gillan McLachlan took a long time to disappear.
Yeah.
And that was Goyder, as much as anyone, not wanting to let him go, couldn't make a decision. Kylie Watson-Wheeler, the
thrown in
Bulldogs.
the mix, yeah.
For 5 minutes, she was going to be it because he liked her. So the footy fan know, gee, they took a long time to do that. Now, gee, they're taking a long time to do it. It's just ongoing the same issues.
Yeah, and I think given, the administration has faced its challenges, as has been well documented, that's an understatement, isn't it? So this is just another chapter in this long and storied story at the moment. Now, a long and storied story is Jack Ginnivan, of course, in Adelaide. He returns to the scene of that famous flying moment against Ken Hinkley, no less, this Friday night, effectively a year to the day, Josh, and the first time since that Adelaide Airport doorstop. What is the latest for Jack and what waits for him this weekend?
Talking of chapters, there are a lot of chapters in this book, that's for sure. So it was September 13 last year, that infamous semi-final where Jack lit the fuse before the game with his Instagram comments on Brody Grundy's Instagram. Obviously, Ken Hinkley returned serve with that aeroplane. That sort of started the, angst between Jack and the city of Adelaide as a whole. Obviously, this year, Port Adelaide fans went after him at Gather Round, and then the Adelaide game was when he gave them a little middle finger salute, got a fine for that, stoked the fire again the next day and was doorstopped on the way out. Hawthorn is preparing for a doorstop on the way in on Thursday when he arrives on Thursday afternoon. They're expecting that. They're briefing Jack Ginnivan about how to handle that, that reporters are going to be there. They have no issues with his behaviour at all. They love Jack Ginnivan inside and outside of the club. His work internally is marvelled at. He's the first person to speak up in team meetings, they say, and his performance on the field in the past 10 weeks has been outstanding. He is an all-Australian calibre player right now. So they're loving what he's doing. I don't think anybody loved what the Adelaide crowd was doing last week, with Isaac Quaynor in particular. That booing was disappointing on all levels. The Crows were reasonably quiet about it. They put out a statement the day after, but they haven't gone back to the well. This week, they are going to decide to not say anything publicly over fears that telling the crowd what to do means that they will do the opposite. So that's why they're sitting on the fence, I suppose, but it's going to lead to footy's hottest cauldron will light again.
Surely we send the same reporter, Lauren. Surely
well, this was going to be my question
front and centre
to you, because we were discussing it in the Herald Sun newsroom today.
Has to.
Are you once bitten, twice shy sort of thing in this scenario? Do you front up again?
Yes. And Jack, being Jack and he's the showman, I think he'll almost cuddle her and go, look at us, our best friends, because she's not going to have as a... What question would she ask? Oh, are you going to give them the bird again or something? I mean, perfect theatre. I'm
sensing an Instagram
Send
story.
Send the same reporter, please.
Yeah, Jack loves an Instagram story, so there might be a bit more of that action.
I'm excited to see whatever celebrations, whatever things he's planning. He will have spent all week thinking about that. It would be exciting to watch. Now, Lauren, we sent you out on assignment today to Collingwood to watch a bit of training. What did you see? Who's going well?
I have a little bit of track watch. So it was a pretty short session for Collingwood. Of course, they've got the week off this week ahead of that home prelim next week. So about 45 minutes. All eyes very, very firmly, of course, on Bobby Hill as to whether he will return next week. Now, he was in pretty high spirits. He was training alongside some other sort of fringe players who are thereabouts, the likes of Tom Mitchell and guys like that. We'll see some vision of him here. But you can see the smile was written all over his face. He was engaging in drills with Leon Davis. Well and truly in the thick of it. As I say, it was a pretty light session. A lot of smiling, engaging with the coach. Just here we can see as well Craig McRae was watching on very, very closely, and there was a nice big wave to the fans who yelled out to him on the way out. So he hasn't played anything other than the sub, which was in one game since round 15. It's an incredible selection quandary that they're weighing up with him at the moment. Not only, I guess, physically, is it worth rolling the dice? I know Mick McGuan said in the Herald Sun yesterday he thinks it's too great of a risk. But I think there is the risk too of, you've got a guy like Dan McStay who trained fully as well today, waiting in the wings, Jeremy Howe as well. It's a risk both mentally and physically, isn't it?
It is, but I think it's a no-brainer, and I think Craig McRae will do it. I mean, Rowan Steele, the young kid, came on, did a couple of nice things, but you can put a Norm Smith medalist in that seat potentially only has to play a quarter and a half, 2 quarters. We understand the issues he's had. You train well for a couple of weeks, you're ready enough. His teammates know, as long as he's one that hasn't lost the trust there, which, there was interviews a couple of weeks ago with Braino Maynard and others who said, yeah, he has to turn up. Well, the message was, you turn up, we'll give you the love again. And I feel like that's back. The one I'm more interested in is Jeremy Howe. I'm very worried about if they select him. Do you get that vibe? What was he doing today?
Well, it's the breakdown risk, isn't it? He was moving very, I wouldn't say slowly, but he certainly wasn't breaking into anything resembling a run, but not many of them were, to be honest, but certainly wasn't jumping on tackle bags and the sort of thing that we can usually see from Jeremy. He's effectively got 29 days until that grand final from that latest adductor injury, so they've got everything hopeful. Josh Dacos actually spoke after training as well and backed in Bobby if there was ever a player to be sidelined for the better part of 3 months to come in and have an impact. But in true sibling style, of course, Josh, Nick Dacos was not at training today, neither was Scott Pendlebury and Brodie Myercheck. Some of them load management. Obviously, Brodie, I believe he had that foot stomped on the weekend, so he's managing that. But Josh putting his brother right in it. He can't handle a cold, it was from Josh. So said that Nick had a bit of a case of the sniffles, didn't train this afternoon. But their main session tomorrow, Josh, and then, of course, a twilight session on Friday. So a lot to weigh up there for Craig McRae. Now, Brodie Myercheck, as I say, has that toe issue. Probably had a game to forget, it was safe to say, on the weekend as he continues to battle that. But not only is he battling the turf issue, but he's one of the only finalists that are in action over the next couple of weeks that are without a contract, Josh.
Yeah.
You've cast an eye across the players that are remaining in the competition and what their status is. Yeah,
so we're down to 6 teams now, and of the teams, the full selection of those teams, only 15 players were selected in those 6 teams on the weekend that don't have a contract going forward. So, as I said, Brodie Myercheck's one of those. He's been pushing and pulling with Collingwood on that contract. Jamie Elliott is another one at the Pies who's been going back and forth. You can see the list of names there. Geelong is the only team without an out-of-contract player in its team at the moment. Reece Stanley may come back in. We'll talk about him a little bit later. Some news on these names tonight. Ryan Lester will sign another 1-year deal. That will be his 8th 1-year deal, I believe. So
what's it going to happen in quarter time? I'm lucky he got that through.
That will be ticked off probably in the next week or so. Jai Farah at the Gold Coast, he's another one out of contract. He's in negotiations at the moment. He came from nowhere in round 20 to break into the side as that third tall defender, so he will line up a new deal there. Hawthorn is still hopeful about James Worpel, but we all think he's gone down the highway to Geelong. Sam Butler there is a player of intrigue, I think, to rival clubs, given his speed as a small forward. One of the heroes on the weekend with the final quarter goal. He's putting off contract talks for now to focus on the finals, so we'll keep a watch on him over the next few weeks.
It's compelling to see Mason Cox on that list. We know what he has done at this time of year in years gone by. Obviously, his height, it's an ultimate cliche to say that players like that don't grow on trees, but, geez, he could just about play himself into one more year in the next couple of weeks, couldn't he?
He admitted after the game last week that he told his brother, I think this could be my last game. It was the middle of the year, and I think he was right. And then he's trained, he stayed there, and Craig McRae's pulled the rabbit out of the hat at the right time. So, would Collingwood keep him or would someone else have a nibble? I think someone else would definitely have a nibble now. If you saw what Mason can do, we know he's capable of this, and he again showed it in their biggest game of the year. So I'd have a look at Mason Cox.
Definitely. We're going to see 5 players on the bench, according to the football boss yesterday. So if you're going to have an extra player on the bench, you need a backup ruck who can actually ruck. That's probably why he's playing at the moment more than the forward stuff. So he's quite a valuable piece.
So out of Myercheck and Elliott. So Elliott to the Gold Coast is very strong. I mean, he owes Collingwood nothing. He's much, much loved. If he goes, because I know, change of environment to finish his career, to help them, elevate them to an elite finals team, and where would Myercheck fit then? You can't lose both.
No, and they've been hunting for a key forward, Collingwood, for a long time, and they just can't really land one. Dan McStay's out of the team right now. They'd be in trouble, I think, in their forward line without Jamie Elliott's 52 goals for the season. They'd be looking for answers, and this is a team right in the premiership window. We know they're keen for a guy like Ben King. It appears he's not leaving, so they need a Jamie Elliott replacement if he goes, because he has been there full forward this year, really.
Well, there's so much to weigh up for Collingwood, of course, and they're not even playing this weekend, if you can believe it. But the Gold Coast Suns well and truly are after their first finals victory. Will this man be there this weekend? It remains to be seen what Damien Hardwick does with the hero of that victory. It just had to be David Swallow, didn't it? I've watched this about 18 times, boys, and the elation is there for all to see. It was the best moment in Suns history, and now for the biggest game in their history. And I tell you what, the little master, he's going full guava. He's right behind them. We'll be back with that on the Midweek Tackle soon. Welcome back to the Midweek Tackle. Of course, 2 semi-finals await us this weekend, boys. They are absolute crackers on every line. Now, Gold Coast, they set the football world alight with that last gasp victory. And there's one man that thinks they can actually go all the way. Now, I don't want to say this with such reservation, but none other than Gary Ablett Jr. We know he was such a big part of the Gold Coast Suns in their early days before he moved back to Geelong. He has said today that he well and truly believes at their best they can beat anyone and that they can go all of the way, of course, with Matt Rowell and Noah Anderson in seats 1A and 1B. Now, you're looking sceptical, Scotty.
If Gaz comes out of retirement and plays in a forward pocket, they might. Look, I get he's getting very excited. The scenes after that game, I was jumping up on the couch like everyone else. They are 1 to 2 years away from winning it, but why not keep rolling here? But Gaz has to say that, doesn't he?
Well, he said also in that interview that he turned off the TV at three-quarter time because he was too nervous to watch the rest. So I don't know how he would possibly know, given he missed the most important part. But there was a lot of very important parts in the first week, Lauren. You had a look, you crunched the numbers at who performed and who didn't, who was hot and who was not.
Yes, we love our friends at Champion Data, of course, and the numbers mean plenty at this time of year. Now, they, the mysterious they, of course, say that some players are made for finals, and it actually turns out they are. So we had a look at the numbers from the first weekend of the finals, of who are the September risers and then, of course, unfortunately, the fallers, which we'll get to in a minute. Now, so these are the players, they've actually been rated against their own personal rating, so how their September performance stacked up against their own sort of standards. Now, Jai Newcombe, I tell you what, he was pivotal in Hawthorn holding away the Giants. That was his #1 performance of the season. So talk about saving your best for last. 32 disposals, tick, season high. 17 contested possessions, second for the season. 12 tackles, season high. So well and truly up there. Tom Stewart, another one who delivered a beauty. He was well and truly looking for revenge, let me tell you, after the Lions got the chocolates over him last time. But these are the guys you need to step up, Scotty.
And he's been building to this. Like Tom Stewart had a slow start, injuries, etc. And we all know if Tom Stewart plays well, plays the way he wants to play, Geelong set it up that way. And Brisbane just went, we're going to kick it to him. We're going to let him be, the one out. It was too good for him.
And Jai Newcombe, that's 3 finals for him, 3 best on grounds so far in his career.
Well and
he's
truly,
a machine.
well and truly September specialist, but with every specialist there must be, say, someone who September doesn't quite suit them. Now, Hugh McCluggage was well and truly clamped, and the Champion Data statistics have shown that it was his lowest rated performance for the season for disposals. He only had 93 metres gains. Of course, O'Shea Mullen did an absolute job on him for the Cats and just the 1 score involvement, so that was his lowest as well. Now, Jordan Dawson, the Adelaide captain, he fell into this category too. We know illness has swept through the Adelaide camp, so maybe that was an excuse for him. Jack Crisp, though.
It's an interesting one.
Well, it is an interesting one, but I think that means he was a victim of his own high standards, if you will. As I say, these aren't rated against the competition, or this is their own sort of personal level. And Brodie Myercheck, as I say, that was his lowest performance for the season, but as you say, had that sort of toe issue as well. So we'll keep a very close eye on that, of course, over the next few weeks to see who can rise to the occasion. Now, one man I was really hoping rose to the occasion, of course, was Jeremy Cameron. We flagged it a few weeks ago. We thought the 100 was well and truly in play this season, Josh, but he might be getting in his own way.
Well, he's made me put my runners back in the cupboard because I had him out ready to run on the field if he got to 100, but it's his own yips that have got in the way. So in the past 4 games he's played, he's had 27 shots at goal and he's only kicked 10 goals, which I asked those famous people at Champion Data for the numbers, and that is his worst first 4-game stretch in his career when he's had more than 25 shots. So he's got the yips at the wrong time. It's cost him 100 goals. Geelong will say it's fantastic he's getting this many shots, but he probably could have kicked 5 in the first quarter on Friday, fluffed his lines there. They can't afford to have him fluffing his lines in a close final when it gets to knockout stages. So
is this the subconscious? Like, as soon as we ramped up he's on target of 100, he needs to kick X. He's got a couple of easy games leading in. He should be at 90 by the final. Since that moment, he's missing him from 10 metres out.
Yeah.
It's very un-Jezza-like.
He's in his own head. Just quickly too, Reece Stanley on that injury update this afternoon. Scotty, 1 to 3 for that hamstring.
Yeah, it's a Geelong 1 to 3, which...
How many weeks left in the season are there?
They've got 2 games.
It's 3 weeks left in the season, I believe. So
you were down there. He's done a little... He's been running I think they think maybe not the preliminary final, but you're leaving the door open for the grand final. So Cats are up their old tricks, but Reece is still in the picture.
I'll be down there tomorrow, so I'll keep a very close eye. Just a very, very quick one before we go to a new one-year deal for Nick Haynes. So finally some good news coming out of Carlton there, the defender signing on. And even better news, we'll be back again tomorrow night. It's a 2-night tackle week, so we'll be back for Midweek Tackle tomorrow night at 7:30. Of course, all of the news at codesports.com.au. We'll see you there.